Good evening, everyone. We are going to start today with a story that is called Mary's Gift of Love. And this is based on John chapter 12, verses 1 through 8. It was a few days before the feast of Passover. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus had invited Jesus and his friends to dinner. The two sisters had prepared a special meal to celebrate, for just a few days earlier, Lazarus had died. Now he was alive again. They were all so happy that Jesus had brought him back to life. Martha spread the table and lit the lamps. The guests arrived and seated themselves. Mary helped serve the meal. She passed around food for everyone to eat. Everyone talked excitedly to Lazarus about what a miracle it was. They had thought Lazarus was dead, but Jesus had brought him back to life. Mary looked at her brother and smiled, and Lazarus smiled fondly at his sister. Then Mary glanced over at Jesus. Jesus is looking tired and sad, thought Mary. I know he's worried about going up to Jerusalem for the Passover, with the leaders threatening to harm him. I wish I could convince him not to go, but I know it's no use. He's determined to continue doing what he's doing, and nothing I could say would ever convince him otherwise. Mary wished she could do something to show Jesus how much she loved him. The leaders hate him, but I think he's the most loving and kind person I've ever met, she thought to herself. Suddenly, she had an idea. She jumped up and ran into the next room and came running back with a jar of very expensive perfume oil. It was something she'd put aside and kept for herself. It was a special oil containing spices that had come all the way from India. It was worth almost a whole year's wages. Without a moment's hesitation, Mary poured the whole bottle onto Jesus' feet and gently rubbed them. She dried them with her hair. Perhaps now he would not feel so tired and sad. Everyone around the table gasped in surprise. The sweet smell seemed to fill the whole house. Judas Iscariot stood up angrily. That was a stupid thing to do, he shouted. This perfume could have been sold and we could have given the money to the poor. Everyone knew that Judas didn't really care about the poor. He was in charge of the money bag for the group. From time to time, they suspected he helped himself to the money. Leave her alone, Jesus said firmly. Think of it this way. You know how it is our custom to anoint the dead with oils and ointment. She has given me this perfume in preparation for the day of my burial. You will always have the poor with you, and you will always have responsibility for caring for them. But you won't always have me. It is a beautiful gift of love that she has given me. Then Jesus turned to look at Mary. Tears were streaming down her face. Thank you, Mary, he said softly. So what do you think about Mary's gift to Jesus? It was pretty nice, and it was something that was, this oil, the scented oil was something that was very expensive and really thought of as a special thing. So it was a pretty nice gift that she gave him. And she did it because both out of love and concern. She was so worried about him and all that he might have to face. And she loved him. So she wanted to do something to him, do something for him, to help him and to express her love. Now, this oil cost about 300 denarii, which are silver coins, and that's thought to have been maybe equal to like a year's wages. So this was very extravagant, right? And some of the other people there, they thought it was too extravagant because they didn't really understand Mary's motivation and her reasons for doing it. But Jesus reacted differently to Mary's outpouring of love because he appreciated what she had done for him and that it was done out of love. And so scented oils were often applied to the dead before burial. So that was why he said, think of it as something that will be for my burial. So I will be prepared for that. So really, so she did it out of love, and Jesus realized that. And so he really appreciated the gift for that reason. Now, not all gifts have to be extravagant. Not all gifts can even be wrapped up in wrapping paper. think about all the different ways that there are of giving gifts. So there's the gifts that are objects like toys or clothes or food that you might receive on your birthday, or money can be a gift, whether you're receiving money as a gift from maybe a grandparent or an uncle or your parents, or think of money that you might have donated, for example, as a part of the UCC's One Great Hour of Sharing. If you put some coins in the box and brought it in to be donated to help others, that's a gift, right? But gifts don't often have to be tangible or something you can touch or cost any money at all. You might give your neighbor the gift of shoveling out their walkway in the winter from snow, or maybe give your parents the gift of doing a couple extra chores without even being asked. That would be a very appreciated gift for your parents, I'm sure. Or, I think of my piano teacher from when I was growing up. I took piano lessons for her for 12 years, and I'm still in touch with her these days. And I send her videos of my current piano students, and she calls them her piano grandchildren. And I made a point to reach out to her a number of years ago after we hadn't been in touch, because she gave me such a gift, in that she gave me the gift of music. And so I'm still grateful for that today. So think of giving of these gifts of any of these sorts is one way that you can show love. Think about a gift you would like to give someone, or that you would like to receive, that you feel would really express love. What sort of gift might it be? It might be something that someone does and can't be wrapped up. And this is the type of gift that was given by the woman I'm going to talk about for the second half of our lesson today. So this is in honor of our last week of Women's History Month. And I'm going to tell you about a woman that gave a gift to so many people, and her gift was her voice and song and the pleasure that her singing gave to so many people. And her name is, see if I can get it right, Sissy Jones, wonderful name. And this is her story. Sissy Jones was born as Matilda Sissy Joyner before she got married in 1868, long time ago, in Virginia. And this was just after the end of the Civil War. Her father was a pastor, and he had been born into slavery. Her mother was a washerwoman. When Sissy was 10, her family moved to Rhode Island, where her father had been offered a position as a minister. So Jones began singing in church choir, and she was pretty young at that point. So she started singing at a pretty young age. And that is when her path to stardom began, in that church with her father. She later said, "After singing a solo at a Sunday school concert, some people said to my mother, 'That child sang a high C. You should let her learn music.'" So the family wasn't very well off, so no one really knows how they were able to afford this, but they figured out one way or another how she could attend the Providence Academy of Music, where she received training in how to sing. In 1886, when she was about 20, she continued to receive voice training in Boston, and then she began touring on stages throughout the Northeast. She was soon hired as the lead vocalist in a group called the Tennessee Jubilee Singers, and they would perform arias and gospel and popular tunes, all sorts of music. And then this was a group that traveled all over, even like to the Caribbean, to packed and usually racially mixed concert halls. Now, her second tour that she went on after she sang with the Tennessee Jubilee Singers, this group went on tours that sang for the heads of state and other dignitaries. And on these tours, she often received, Sissy Jones often received numerous medals and precious jewels, and she'd pin them across her chest, and these became a part of her signature look when she was performing. Now, in the United States, Sissy Ureta became known as the Black Patty, and this was a comparison to an Italian opera singer named Adelina Patti. And no one knows where the name came from. It was likely given to her by one of her managers who thought it would help promote her career. But as you can imagine, she did not really approve of this nickname, but sadly it stuck with her throughout her career. Her big break was when she performed operatic pieces at the newly built Madison Square Garden Concert Hall to an audience of thousands of people. And this led to her singing at the White House for President Harrison. And the following year, she became the first African-American woman to headline a concert on the main stage at Carnegie Hall, which is a pretty big deal. She became so famous, she even went on a European tour where she performed for emperors and kings and princes. So everything was going great for her until in 1896, when she was about 30, when a ruling by the Supreme Court brought about a new level of segregation and racial violence. So Sissy Ureta was no longer able to sing in what were now considered white concert halls. But she had lots of talent, and she found a way to still reach audiences and still give them the gift of her song. She joined and then became the star of the Black Patty Troubadours. This was a vaudeville group. They had over 50 acrobats and comedians and dancers and singers, including Jones, Sissy Ureta Jones. And her operatic repertoire quickly became, and the whole group quickly became popular across the United States. So Sissy Ureta traveled with this troupe around the country for almost 20 years. And it wasn't without its challenges, because as the Jim Crow laws barred the troupe from hotels because it was an entirely African-American group, they got their own train car, which acted as both transportation and also their lodging. Segregation also affected how audiences saw the show. So white audiences would sit in the orchestra down on the first floor, close up, while the Black audience was forced to sit upstairs in the balconies of the halls. So it was definitely a challenging time for her to be singing around the country. She left the stage and retired in 1915 at the age of 47, in part to help take care of her aging mother in Rhode Island. And despite being called one of the greatest singers of all times, and being the highest paid African-American performer of her generation, all those medals and jewels and gifts that she had received, she ended up having to sell them in order to survive until she died. And she sold them all off, and she still died in poverty in 1933 and was buried in an unmarked grave. But luckily, in spite of the difficulties later in her life, her gift was honored in a new way in 2018, when fans of hers raised a bunch of money to place a headstone on her grave. That was 2018, so just a few years ago. So Sissy Ureta Jones is a wonderful example of a woman that gave people across the country a gift of her singing and the pleasure that it brought to so many people, even though they were being anything but kind to her across the country with segregation, the Jim Crow laws that she faced as she did this. So as a conclusion to this lesson, I want you to think about what sort of gift you might have to offer, and not just your loved ones, but think about what could be your gift to the larger community, and maybe in indirect ways, what might be your gift to the world that you could offer. So I'll leave it there, and I will see you next time.